Good afternoon. Today we are here with Leocadia Zak. She's the director of United States and Trade Development Agency for the United States, and we are honored and privileged to sit down and interview her at the Power in African Summit. And Mrs. Zak, can you tell us what does USTDA does in terms of Africa?
Oh, absolutely. First of all, I want to thank you so much for taking the time for this interview. I mean, Africa is such an important continent, and the work that's being done through Power Africa is so valuable. So thank you so much for taking the time. USTDA plays a very important role in Power Africa and the work that's being done now on the continent. What we do is we link U.S. businesses with development opportunities, in particular focusing on infrastructure development. That's why Power Africa is so important. Energy is one of the areas that we work in, but we also work in areas such as transportation and IT as well.
Awesome. Can you just tell us a little bit about the recent project that you guys did in Africa and the result?
There are a number of projects that we have worked on in Africa, and I mentioned a few this morning at the summit. But the couple that we're very proud of, as well as we recently have funded renewable projects in Rwanda, where we had provided the project planning funding, and those have recently gone on to financial close. So these are, one, it's bringing power, it's bringing clean and renewable power, and it's bringing power to areas that might not otherwise have it if we hadn't been participating in that project.
That's awesome. So when you look on what is currently going on in Africa, you realize that there's a lot of diverse investors, mixed investors that are very interested in the opportunity on the continent. Can you tell us some of the challenges that you have seen firsthand that these investors face?
Well, it's interesting. One of the topics that came up today, and something that we've heard time and time again, is that because of the interest in Africa right now, there are a lot of investors coming to the continent. One of the problems is that they don't have enough bankable projects. They're projects, but they're not ready for the investors. So it's one of the things actually our agency does is that we provide grant funding for project preparation to be able to get these projects from an idea stage all the way up to the financing stage. So we're able to be able to meet sort of this potential challenge. And I think it's one that's extremely important because if we don't act now, we're not going to be able to access that money and it may go elsewhere.
So when you also look, you realize that most of these huge conferences going on, most of the people in the rooms are huge global investors and business owners, C-level business executive. Are you guys doing some things also to target the small and medium-sized business owners who also have that interest in export and investment opportunities in Africa?
It's one of the things that I love about our agency and I love about the Power Africa effort. It really does focus on all aspects, from large to very small scale. So USTDA has worked from everything from large-scale gas-powered facilities and gas itself, all the way down to microgrid and off-the-grid projects. So the other thing that we do is we also reach out in the United States to U.S. businesses, and we bring delegates to the United States to be able to meet with small and medium-sized businesses, to give them an opportunity that they might not otherwise have, and so that they don't have to start by going to the continent. We can bring people to the United States to meet with small, medium-sized businesses, and they're really sort of the heart of the U.S. economy.
Oh, that's very interesting. Okay, let's say an owner of a business, it's a small business in the United States, is interested in doing a project in a country in Africa, for example, Ghana, and they have heard about USTDA. What is the process that he or she needs to take in terms of working with the USTDA in doing the projects in Africa?
Well, one of the things that we pride ourselves on is efficiency. So the first thing I would do is have someone look at our website, which is www.ustda.gov. The next thing they would have them do is call our office. It all starts with a phone call. Instead of people having to go through lengthy applications, we have an outstanding staff and they are willing to talk people through what their idea is. If there's an indication that it's an idea that we can move forward with, then people may ask them for a one-pager and we'll move from there. The other thing I really love about the people in our agency is that they're fantastic at trying to get people to the right place. So even if we can't help them, they'll try to put people to the right place in the U.S. government who might be able to help them.
Okay, can you talk a little bit more about what, in terms of trade missions, because I believe you guys do trade mission in Africa in the trade. Can you talk a little bit more about some of the things that need to be put in place for delegations that are in the United States and they want to exploit opportunities in Africa?
Mm-hmm. I mean, one of the things we do is we don't host as many delegations going to Africa, but delegations from Africa to the United States. As a matter of fact, I was really delighted to see several of our delegation members here who've been here in the past on USTDA delegations. But what we do is we focus on a particular area, projects that are ripe to be able to move forward. We bring those delegations to the United States, have them go to U.S. businesses so they can talk to the manufacturers, talk to the service providers directly, all across the United States. It's not just Washington, D.C., but it's wherever these people may be. And we also throughout the country set up business briefings that are open to the public, so the public can come and meet with these delegations. So we bring Africa to the U.S.
Okay, that is very interesting. With the huge experience that you have, and you have been working on these trade developments. So now, with people who have projects in Africa, and you talked about when the project is ripe. Mm-hmm. Now, that is from a high standpoint from you, and those people now that have projects in Africa, what do you consider at the level that a project is ripe for them to be able to work with the USTDA?
Yeah, and there are two aspects. When we're bringing a delegation to the United States, we want to be sure that we're looking at either a project that's ready to move forward. If they're meeting investors, we want to be sure it's right for investment. If they're looking for technology, we want to be sure that they're at the time that they'll be able to buy the technology. So it depends on what stage a project is in. But one of the things we do is the project preparation that I mentioned earlier that's so important. So that can be when someone comes to us with an idea that is, demonstrates that it's developmental, it has the possibility for financing, and there is a link with a private sector as well. They can bring that idea to us at that point, and it's something that we'll look at, and we can advise them whether or not it's ripe at that stage, or more importantly, what it is we can do to make it ripe.
Excellent. So now let's talk on something really crucial. And as an African person from Africa, I know there are a lot of barriers in terms of even going down there with taking U.S. businesses into Africa. Can you talk on some of the barriers that you know that are really major in terms of the U.S. businesses exporting in Africa?
Well, I think we actually had a very good discussion today in panel focusing on Nigeria. And I think one of the things that we have seen is oftentimes people are looking to see that there's consistency with respect to application of law. There were very positive results on our panel today in Nigeria. And I think what U.S. businesses want to look at is, do they have a fair opportunity? Is their procurement process such that will allow U.S. businesses to come in? At the same time, is there a rule of law and application fairly? So I think those are sort of very important parts. And then depending on your industry, there may be sort of specific questions with respect to tariffs and being able to make repayments. But what people are really looking at is sort of a stable investment environment.
And when you talk about a steady investment environment, just give us some few points that you look into considering an environment, a steady environment.
Mm-hmm. I mean, one of the things we want to be sure of is that, for example, a lot of the financing is done by contract. So we want to be sure that those contracts can be enforced, whether there's a change in government, that it's still going to be enforced by the host country government. We want to be sure that whoever is providing funding for a particular project, who's going to be sort of buying, whether it's in power, is going to be buying the power, is going to be able to pay for that power in a currency that people are going to be able to take away and benefit from. So the biggest thing that people look at is to ensure that their agreements are going to be honored, and that their agreements are fair.
Awesome, awesome. So we are at the Powering African Summit 2016, and what message do you really have for people who are not even here at this conference and they are interested in doing business in Africa? What special message do you have for them?
I think the most exciting part is that it's clear that Africa is open for business. And it's also clear that as a result of Power Africa, there's money available. So it's just being able to access that money, being able to prepare projects in such a way that you can access that money. But it's clear that this, I mean, if you look at the buzz around the hallways here, I mean, this is a vibrant market and one that we really should be paying attention to.
That's awesome. So, what do you look forward to getting from this event? Is today and tomorrow. What's that special interest of yours in at the summit?
Well, I think I have two. One, it's really fun to be able to see friends from Africa and our Africa partners, so that's been really great. But the other thing is it's also sort of making new friends. And I've really been excited at the number of new project opportunities that have come forward to us since we've been here, and the really interesting ideas, both from Africa but also from US business that has technology that they are specially designing to be able to use in Africa. So I mean, coming out of these today and some of the workshops tomorrow, what I see are more opportunities and being able to put more people together, more U.S. providers of goods and services with our African partners.
I think that is really major, and to really boil down, I think it's more of Africa is open, and there's a lot of opportunities, so a lot of people can go in there and start really working. I really, really want, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for